How's it going? This is Royal with Talk Show Central RTV Style. And tonight we have a great show. We have Judge Adela coming in. We have Eduardo Saldovan coming in. I got Vanzilla coming in. And I got Hilda coming in. We're going to talk about social crimes and punishments, guys. So, further ado, here comes the stars of the show. Here comes Eduardo. How's it going, Eduardo? Here comes Vangela and Hilda. So
Hi.
we got everybody. How's it going today? How was your day? Let's see, does this work? Nope, that doesn't work. So we're going to go with a straight color here. And you know what? Let's put a little bit of flag. No, se mira mejor. Let's just keep it blue. That looks pretty cool. So cool, man. Vangela, how you been? I'm sure you're really busy with your testing and all that. Vangela is a school administrator. She's a vice principal. Am I right?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
keeps you really busy, man. So
Super
what are you
busy
guys
this
doing
time
right
of year.
now? What are you guys doing right now?
Well, we are testing. We're giving our end of course state exams, so there's no room for mistakes or errors. So we have to go through hours and hours of sifting through student data and making sure we get it right.
Ugh, oh my goodness. And Edward, you guys are pretty busy up there at the courthouse, and especially you have a big old case con esta, what is it, Melissa Lucio and all of that, and you don't have to tell us anything, but I can just tell
Yeah.
things are pretty busy over there.
Well, we're back in jury trials. In fact, one of our teams got a guilty verdict yesterday in a child sex case, and the predator was sentenced to 50 years in prison.
Oh my
Dang.
goodness. Well, that's good, I guess.
That's awesome.
Get rid of those bad people that are causing our children and our future. You never know what these kids can grow up to be, man. A new scientist, some kid that's gonna come discover something great, and all of a sudden some predator gets them and messes up their self-esteem, messes up the way they're gonna think, or they commit suicide or something, and great loss to humanity. So definitely a pass. Hilda, you're busy over here promoting music and all of that.
Yes. Good busy day.
So yeah. Wow. Anyway, so let's get into this. The topic tonight, guys, is a very serious issue. We're talking about social media crimes and the punishments. And you might think it's this is from the kids' point of view, also with adults, but we're focusing more on the children. Am I right, Edward?
Yes, sir. And Adela's trying to log in. She says that she can see us, but she can't make it in.
All right. See, probably something with her settings and all that, but so hold on. I'm already home, so hold on. Somebody wants to do a pre-test. So I'm gonna tell him around 9:30. Oops, que la around 9:30. All right, cool. So great. And so a lot of these kids, I hear, and I think Vangela has told me, and I know you kind of mentioned a little bit, and I know people that we talk about, kids, especially I guess teens, they're sending each other, nudie pictures and pictures that are silly in other ways, and they think it's fun, they think it's cute, they think they're just just making a joke, but this is serious. This is a serious issue. Once it gets on a phone, it gets on the internet, that kind of deal. Well, if they post it into the internet like a TikTok or Facebook or whatever, then it's really a big major deal because it's already out there, right? So that's what we're going to tackle, right? Am I right, Edward? We're going to tackle some situations like that. Now, let me ask you a question before you go on. Now, is this a problem mainly in high school, in middle school, or even in elementary?
So it's unfortunate that we're seeing it all across the entire spectrum.
Oh my goodness!
I know that we've worked a case. We're fortunate in the Rio Grande in Cameron County to have the Rio Grande Valley Child Exploitation Task Force. It's a multi-agency task force comprised of federal, state, and local police agencies that work together to fight crimes against children, and that typically manifests itself in online crimes. I know that they worked in the past few years with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office because a predator from here had found online a young girl there, was sending her threats and soliciting and securing inappropriate images from her over there. And we
Wow.
were able to work with them, identify him here, execute search warrants, have him arrested, and have him sent to California to answer for the crimes that he committed there.
Wow. So that included bullying and that kind
Well,
of deal. And so, wow.
so I would say is to say that the online crimes kind of encompass in two areas. One is going to see that sexual solicitation, and the other one is intimidation, which is an imbalanced use of power, which is what bullying is the use of an imbalance of power to take advantage of someone else. And when we're talking about the internet, that's typically anonymity.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. And I would say that would be like virtual kidnapping in a sense,
well,
because you take control of them, and so it's like they're not there physically, but virtually that you've kidnapped somebody virtually.
practically speaking, there has been some virtual kidnappings in Texas, but that aside, they're what happens is that the children that are being preyed upon, people are cultivating relationships with them, grooming them, and trying to get them to normalize behavior that they normally wouldn't have been engaging in. We're talking
Wow.
about pre-adolescents and children. They don't know anything about sexual conduct or adult
Right.
culture.
Right. Yeah.
So what the predators do is they start off small, and they start normalizing things until where they get them to agree to do things that they shouldn't be agreeing to, or it's years beyond their understanding.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow. And let me before we get started, Hilda, tell us a little bit. I know you have grandkids that are little, and that now with social media, every kid is vulnerable to something like that. How does that how do you hear this, and how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm here to listen. I have five granddaughters, and well, some of the well, I think my son-in-law has parent control, on the phones. But like I put a password on here to where they can't get on. I have to get on, to control my computer. But there's little kids like from 2 to 4. They know what they're using and doing on the phone already. So
Wow.
anybody can come out and reach out, and there's like so much webcams,
Yeah.
and I've seen in like true movies, and it can be anywhere. It can be here in your own house to where these guys, they want pictures of you, or they say they're going to, come out and threaten your family. And a lot of these young girls believe that. And
Mm.
am I right or wrong? And these girls believe it. How do you prevent that from happening? You know?
Wow. I mean, and this is why we have the professionals. This is why we have people like Edward and Judge Adela that have created, like a task force, and they're tackling this issue because it's become a major issue. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking about it, or they wouldn't be working on projects that we go. And Evangela is going, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, because she sees it at school. And
Yeah.
Evangela, what's your deal at school? What do you see?
So I will tell you about an experience that we had with a freshman student.
Freshman.
And when I worked in the San Antonio area, she met somebody over Snapchat, and he was a 21 and she was 15.
Wow.
And after communicating with each other, she eventually just disappeared from our campus. We couldn't find her. And what happened was, she knew where there were no cameras on campus, and that's where the guy picked her up, took her to his apartment, and raped her, and then dropped her off a block away from his school. Well, now he's in jail. Um, we had our SROs were really good about investigating, and they picked up they went and got his phone, her phone, and they were able to pull up everything, and he was convicted. So
Wow.
another bad one off the street.
Amen.
Yes,
Wow. So, Edward, how do you want me to start? Do we want to go to the PowerPoint, or what do you want to
Well,
do?
I'm here at your leisure. You let me know what you want. You can talk about
Take
the
it away. I
PowerPoint?
just wanted to do a little bit
PowerPoint?
introduction and how everybody felt about it, what they've seen, what they've experienced. Now, come in with the expertise, Edward.
So the concern that we have, and if you pull up the PowerPoint, we need to remember we predate Facebook, and we predate Gmail, and all of the fancy technology that kids are immersed in. So when we grew up with America Online and waiting for that dial up, they have instantaneous access, and while that's wonderful, they have access to the entire compendium of human knowledge.
Right.
When we were children and we came home at night, and we closed the door, and we sat down with our parents for dinner, and we went to bed, that was it. The bad guys are at bay. There's nothing out that can hurt us. That's not the case anymore. I mean, all of us carry with us a cell phone, even youngsters, and that means that 24 hours a day, bad guys have access to them. So Conrad Roy was involved with a very tumultuous relationship and his girlfriend, or who alleged to cared for him, and him were exchanging messages, and she encouraged him to kill himself.
Wow.
And she kept going and going and going, and she called him some expletives until he finally went through with what she wanted him to do, and ultimately, now she was charged and prosecuted in the jurisdiction this happened, but is being mindful of who young folks are spending their time with, because they have access through a phone, they have access through different types of messaging services, to where the message that's being exchanged may not always be in the best interest of our children, or the people that are vulnerable.
And how old was Roy?
I think if you click the next, let's see,
Oh yeah,
I'm not
guilty
sure.
verdict
This
of
is early
young
20s.
women who urged
Yeah.
him to kill himself. All right, there. Okay,
Okay,
there you go. And
so
that's
Natalie, Natalie was I believe a high school student in Hebbronville, and in fact our jurisdiction helped the Texas Rangers when they were investigating this. There was a third party third party kind of app that kind of mirrored the schools. So it was organized by schools, and she became the victim of cyberbullying, in which where people were just bombarding her, and ultimately she took her own life. And from a criminal justice perspective, we don't want that to happen, because this is the worst thing that can happen. We can lose a child
Yes.
that we're entrusted to as a community. But two, it got there because we had from all aspects, the children who were picking on her, to her we had access where there was a lack of supervision, and ultimately we lost her, and that's something we don't want as a community. And if we go to the next one, this is when we talk about cyberbullying and cyber crimes, Brandy Velas, what comes up in Texas. Brandy was a quintessential what she met what society says is beautiful, and she had an ex-boyfriend that she shared some images with, and when they broke up, obviously he kept those images, and him and his new girlfriend began bombarding her and bullying her over the images, picking on her, so much so that she ultimately took her life. And I think it was in front of her family. So here we've lost children because of this type of insidious access that exists, that it creeps in, that people get invited in, and that they either abuse that trust, or take it to extremes, and we can lose children, and we can lose young people that are at the beginning of their life.
And are these bullies charged with any of
Yes.
these crimes? Yes.
Yes. So we have the entire spectrum that are available to us from the prosecutorial perspective. Brandy, the folks who were involved with the death of Brandy were prosecuted in Harris County. They were held accountable, and thankfully And it's not commonly said, but Texas has pretty progressive online crimes that
Yeah.
we're actually on the cutting edge when we talk about crimes committed digitally and holding people accountable for what they do.
Wow.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if a child at the high school level or the junior high level, if they send a nude picture of themselves to another student, that's considered child porn, correct?
Well, yes, it is. So the first part is going to be sexting. It is against the law. It is against the law for minors to share pornographic or sexually explicit images of themselves with one another. So the person who sends it, who promotes it, commits one crime, and the person who receives it and sees it and holds it, that's going to be another crime as well. Now, what children don't realize is they may be sharing these images as when they're 13, 14, 15 years old, but once they turn 18, they're in possession of images of children. So now they're in possession of child pornography. So where we go from where the sharing crime is a misdemeanor, some instances a fine, some instances up to 6 months in county jail. We're talking about child pornography. That's a third-degree felony. That's up to 10 years in prison. Or if they shared the image after they're 18, that's promotion. That's a second degree, and we're looking up to 20 years in prison.
Right. And we do have at the high school level, we have 15-year-olds, we have 18 and 19-year-olds. And in one particular school district, we had an incident very similar to that where a 15-year-old shared a picture of herself with a 18-year-old who then shared it with other students. And then that's when, he was questioned by police. So.
Wow. Wow. Let me hit the next one, right?
Yes, sir. So again, so it's important to be mindful of the apps that children are using and what's going on. Yes, it's great. They're mechanisms to communicate and they're mechanisms to have fun and have access. But we need to be mindful of what they're listening to, what they're sharing, how they're sharing and communicating. I can tell you, we'll talk about Facebook. There's an ongoing sting that occurs in which we're undercover investigators will have a fake profile on Facebook, and it's the image of a young girl, and they'll post, "Oh, I'm mad at my mother," or "I'm mad at my father," and you'll see almost instantaneously how the predators will reach out to the investigator, trying to start cultivating that, and it turns extreme really quickly to where all your mom, that's shame on your mom for doing that, shame on your dad for doing that, to let's meet, let's talk, and it gets explicit. And those folks get arrested because it's online solicitation of a minor.
Wow.
And so we actually have that happening here in the Valley.
Yes. And thankfully, I mean, we've worked with our federal partners, the folks that have done that, that the sting has been run on, that they've been identified, they've been apprehended and been prosecuted and sentenced at both the federal and the state level. So you went to catfishing, and catfishing is the term we use for what's called online impersonation. And I'm not sure if y'all know the story of Manny Te'o. Manny Te'o was an NFL player, and when he was in college, he played for Notre Dame. And when he was at Notre Dame, this guy was all about Twitter. Twitter was his kind of online access,
right.
and he met someone on Twitter who he thought, if you go to the next slide, that he cultivated a relationship with her. And I apologize, I'm not even going to try to read the name. It's a Pacific Islander name. I don't want to butcher it, but he met her. They exchanged messages. For all intents and purposes, this was his girlfriend. He thought she was a student at Stanford, and he kept going to the point where she told him she was dying from cancer, and ultimately, through the communication, it shared that she passes away. And he had dedicated a part of his career to her, wanted to raise cancer awareness. Well, it turns out that she wasn't really talking to Lena. He was talking to someone else. If we go to the next slide, this gentleman, in fact, he had taken Lena's the real person who the image was, to make a facade, a fake profile, and to cultivate that relationship with Manny. And if you go her name, if you go to the next slide, she was I think an ad executive in San Francisco or California. She didn't know about football. She didn't know who Manny Te'o was. It just so happened that her her profile was hijacked, and her images were hijacked to use to cultivate this relationship with him. So this is actually a crime. And catfishing now, not merely just making the fake profile and talking to someone is illegal, but you need that idea of intent to cause harm or defraud. So Manny was in Texas, had the fake person ever asked for some type of money or tried to get him to hurt himself or threaten himself, then that would have crossed the level from being immoral and just wrong and unethical to committing a crime. But that's our general catfishing crime in Texas. When you're impersonating someone with the intent to harm or defraud someone else, and you're using that persona without their permission. And we see this kind of happening, and this is a third-degree felony. So 2 to 10 years in prison for doing this type of conduct.
And you know what's sad? Those MTV shows called Catfishing or Catfish, and they make it seem so normal and like there's nothing really wrong with it. It's almost like a fun and games, you know? And then I believe that, you know, that some of these apps even promote catfishing with their filters and so forth. So, you know, try to impersonate or be somebody who you aren't.
Yeah, and so it leads to at least the victim. They've been taken advantage of. Sometimes they lose money. Sometimes they get hurt, and it's wrong. And now we haven't seen one of these be prosecuted in our jurisdiction, but it is a crime, and it's not okay. Now the next one after that, and this is a joke. A GoFundMe account saying, "Let's rescue Matt Damon from Mars." This next form of catfishing takes the point when you adopt someone's persona without their permission to either harm or defraud someone else. So are we trying to rescue Matt Damon? No, he's not on Mars. He's not. Did he get permission? No. But people are trying to take advantage of that. Now we do see this happen, and there has been instances where this occurs with deaths, in which where someone passes away, and someone starts a GoFundMe account, adopting that person's persona, trying to raise money for the family or the friends of the person that's passed away, and that's horrible. I mean, that has real ramifications and effect on the family, and you're defrauding someone, and that is a crime. And our local sheriff's office has investigated those instances in the past.
Wow. Wow. That's horrible. So again, that's catfishing.
It's a form of catfishing, and again, you just scroll through it. It's using someone else's persona without their permission, with the intent to harm or defraud someone, but by creating something on a web page on a commercial site. Now let's look at this one. Now Justin Bieber has it out for me. He's saying horrible things. I'm asking him, leave me alone. And if you go to the next slide, he just continues going with telling me horrible things and telling me to die. Now, does Justin Bieber know who I am? No, he doesn't. Is that really him? No. So that's another form of catfishing in which where someone takes someone else's personality or so their persona, and they're using it to harass someone. And that would be the last form of prohibited catfishing in Texas. And we see that in bullying standpoints where people are creating these personas to reach out and hurt people.
Wow. And so again, we get this because this is so important for people to understand because, you know, and it's third degree. You're going to go to jail for 2 to 10 years.
Oh, it's prison. This is prison.
Prison, you know, it's big time. A big house.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, this is pretty cool. Okay, what's this MTV top 6 tips to avoid catfish? A catfish.
Yes. So be conscientious about who you're talking to, who you're sharing information with, what your information that you're sharing, photographs that you're sharing online, because what you share to the world, it's free for people to take, and what you don't want is someone taking your persona to be used to hurt someone else, and at the same time, what you don't want is to become a victim to someone who's preying upon you.
Yeah. So it's true. I mean, hey Adela, how's it going? Let me stop sharing here so we get a little bit. Adela, I'm sure you were hearing this from in the background. Any input you want to give us?
Uh, well, the only thing that I can also add to what Edward is saying is that, in addition to that, be very careful with your children, because there's a lot of solicitations of children through the internet, and that is also a huge problem. Not just children, but also young adults, and especially girls. uh, be very careful to all the parents of who their children are talking to through the internet.
Wow. No, but see, that's very true. That's very true. I'm glad you brought us this topic because I've had I don't know. I've never heard the term catfish, quite frankly. And Hilda, had you ever heard that term before?
Yes.
Wow. Uh, I'm sure Vandela has heard. I mean, she's in the front line there fighting. This kind of things that are happening in her school, and sometimes by kids that don't know what they're doing because they just think it's cute. And I think that the thing about this show is we want to educate parents so they can talk to the kids and tell them, hey, it's not something that's cute. This is something that's serious. And that's the heart and that Adela has. That she. I mean, granted, when you're doing things that are illegal, yeah, they need to be punished and all that. But sometimes they do stuff that is just because they're ignorant and lack of knowledge and that kind of thing. And so I appreciate her heart for doing this, and you as well at work, is that because that'll educate the parents, that'll educate the kids and the whole bit. They might think, oh, it's cute, big deal, and all of a sudden boom, they're going to jail. And
You know,
careers future is down the drain, that kind of deal.
right.
Go ahead, Vandela.
I was gonna say, Edward. He was talked about a couple of girls. The Natalie, that was being bullied. You know,
Mhm.
that happens way too often. The kids are addicted to their phones. They're addicted to those apps that was displayed not too long ago. And if a kid doesn't like another kid, or they were best friends one day and the next day they are bashing others, and I've actually seen some text messages and some pictures and some things going back and forth. And at school districts, legally, we have to investigate those things. We have to take those things seriously. If there's any chance that it is considered bullying, we have to do something about it. If we don't do something about it, we could find ourselves in a lawsuit. And that's why we take it very seriously. Now we have to, go by what the definition of bullying is. If it's just you call somebody a name or something, that's not bullying. Bullying is persistently, doing it to somebody. Cyberbullying, even if it happens off campus, if
Mm.
somebody is cyberbullying another student and it is affecting the student receiving an education, we have the obligation to investigate it and pursue it. And if it's something that needs to be turned over to local PD, then we do that.
Wow. Wow.
And there's help. So other than it being a crime, and that it potentially could be a crime, and that it potentially could be an administrative issue with the school, there are civil remedies that are available for children who are suffering this type of kind of conduct. And the first one would be that in the Civil Practice and Remedies Code, there's what's called a cyberbullying injunction. So if a child has suffered cyberbullying, they can apply to the court, and the court can issue. They'll hear evidence, and if the court makes appropriate finding, they'll issue an injunction saying, these people who are picking on this person need to leave them alone or face punishment from the court. And then the second way when we're talking about bullying is that many times what bullying really is, and it manifests itself into what's called stalking. And it's unfortunate that
Wow.
that we hear stalking, we think, oh, creepy guy following the girl. Well, stalking covers so much more conduct than that. And actually, what it means is stalking is a continuing course of conduct in which where someone commits some act, either it be harassment or something else that that places a person in fear, or one of their relatives or their family members in fear that they're going to be hurt or their property is going to be destroyed, and that person has that fear, and an irrational person and a reasonable person would also feel that fear. So a lot of these bullying situations, it kind of fits the definition of stalking. So if you're being stalked, you have the right to seek what's called the stalking protective order. And what the court will say is, look, person, you're stalking this person for the rest of your life. You cannot have conduct with this person. You can't talk to them. You can't go near them. And it provides some type of civil protection for them. And if they break that protective order, say merely going more than within the 200 feet of the person, that's a crime. So we don't
Wow.
have to worry about the bad thing happening. We have this barrier that's created.
Yeah, I like that. In a previous school district where I worked at, we had what was called a no contact contract. And so when we would have issues like that and we were handling it at the administrative level, we would implement a no contact contract. They weren't even allowed to speak to that student, speak about them, talk about them, make faces at them. And it often worked really, really well, so that we would prevent it from escalating to another level.
Wow. Well, I mean,
Just
it just boggles my mind, man. The things that are going on that we sometimes are not aware that are going on. And I mean, I guess I don't know. It might have blinders on me, or I don't know. But I
And
mean,
if you talking about the law, the one that's it's a fascinating idea that we've looked at is that in Texas we have a prohibition that people that are in gangs to prohibit them from committing crime together. And Adela can share with you because she's prosecuted a lot of gang members. We have a very broad definition of what a gang is. A gang is when we have a group of people who have an identifiable leadership or a common symbol, and they commit bad acts together. So when we're talking about groups of kids that are bullying other kids, that are engaging in social media crime with one another, man, those kids are a gang. That's a gang. And so not only are they committing the individual acts, maybe they shake a kid down for lunch money. Maybe they're actually stalking the kid, depending on what they're doing, or maybe there's a fist fight. But not only are they committing the underlying crime, the fact that they're acting together means
makes
that
them
they're
a gang.
engaging in gang conduct, which is makes them a
It,
gang. It's a crime in and of itself.
so what being in a gang means, whatever crime they commit, it escalates a level, uh, more a more serious level. For example, if they assault somebody, if one person assaults another person, it's a class A misdemeanor if there's no serious bodily injury. But if it's a gang, if it's more than one person, if it's two and they're part of a gang, then it's not just an assault class A, it will escalate to an aggravated assault, even if it's only bodily injury because of the fact that it was committed by a gang. And in addition to that, if it doesn't really meet the definition of a gang, meaning it's not a it doesn't have a so-called name, but it can also be an organized criminal activity where it's an organization, it's two or more people doing it, and they have done it more than one time or more than two times. Then they can be also charged with another crime called organized criminal activity.
Wow.
And that will also increase the level of punishment. So, for example, if they are destroying property or committing burglary of a habitation, but it's an organization, but they have to have done it more than once, then it'll increase the level of punishment. Instead of For example, instead of a third degree felony, it'll increase it to a second degree felony, and so forth. So it's basically an enhancement type of punishment when you're doing it with a gang or with other people.
Yeah. Like a group of kids that they're, and I mean, we're not talking about gang members like like for instance here in Browns we call them La Parra, La 421, La 12, gangs from back in my day. I don't know if they're still around, but we're just talking about a group of
No, that's
friends that
still
are
around.
together, that are acting together on picking on one kid. That would be a gang, right?
Yes, that would be a gang.
Hmm.
Now, what we have been seeing in some schools is terroristic threats, which are
Wow.
misdemeanor crimes, and those terroristic threats are also done either over the any device that can be done over the phone, via the internet. A terroristic threat such as "you're finished as of today," or "I'm gonna get you," or "it's over for you." Those words are crimes, and uh, so one has to be a little bit careful in how in the words that one uses, and that needs to be told to our youth.
Right.
A lot of the things that, we always say we need to protect our children from other children, but we also need to teach our children how to behave.
Right.
And it's, we need to tell them, don't bully others, don't terrorize others, don't be telling other children, "You're finished as of today. After school, we're going to beat you up," or whatever it is.
Right.
We also, as parents, need to educate our children how to behave and what not to do.
Wow. Well, Erasmo Castro, hey, thank you for joining us, Erasmo. He's making a comment right here. Part of the problem with social media crimes is that the law is trying to catch up with technology. Yes, or it's kind of
Well,
like a
well,
question.
and I
No,
think that's
I'll
an
be back.
interesting situation presented by the structure of our government, and so far as that our legislature only meets every other year for a very small amount of period. So
Right.
that means that unlike other states where we have a legislature constantly in session, they can react very quickly to changes in culture and changes in technology. We don't have that benefit. So we're
Wow.
seeing our laws kind of being a year and a half behind trends, and you can see it with the issue of swatting. And swatting is when in the situation
Wow.
it happened with people who were playing Call of Duty was the first kind of reported one. There was a
Okay.
Call of Duty kind of people battling each other out online, and one
Okay.
person got mad at the other person, so he called the police and said, "Hey, I've just killed my dad, and I'm holding my mom hostage. Come stop me." So the police rush out with the SWAT team over to this house. Well, lo and behold, the house they go to, uh, the guy hasn't done anything. There's no one's dead.
Right.
No one's being held hostage. But he walks out and he gestures to a remote. The police end up shooting the guy, and it's
Oh.
all because they had been a squabble on Call of Duty. So
Wow.
we didn't really have when that happens a really clear cut law to deal with that. Now we do. We have
Right.
a false report we have a new false report crime that results
Right.
in serious bodily injury or death, and we can adequately punish that now. But as things develop and we see these trends, yes, our legislature kind of is playing catch up.
Yeah, I
Uh,
saw a movie once where the kids were playing a game and then they took it into reality. I mean, it was a game and they took it into reality. They were killing people, and wow, again, it's coming from a game or from a game, from the internet, and then they're portraying it in real life, and so they have actual life victims.
and one thing that that our legislature needs to, regarding what Mr. Castro is saying, uh, the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, is sort of a not an impediment, but it's something that is being used in order to avoid the implementation of protections under the law. regarding cyberbullying and criminalization of the speech at in the internet. So that's another big issue regarding the First Amendment, because it does, we need to expand it and explain it, that the
Right.
First Amendment is not a protection or is not a freedom to harass,
Right.
intimidate, alarm, terrify other people. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't give you that right.
Right. Erasmo also
And
makes
Inspector
another
Della's right.
comment.
It wasn't.
Right. Go ahead. Erasmo makes another comment here. Recently, we had a breach at PUB where we suspect our personal information was hacked. How successful are we in persecuting individuals who penetrate such crimes?
So those types of crimes tend to be perpetrated by interstate actors or international actors. The FBI has a group of agents that they respond to those types of situations,
Yes,
and that's outside of
our
my unique
jurisdiction.
Yeah, it's a
experience.
different field.
Uh,
It's a
but
different field.
but but
Yeah, it's outside the
yes,
jurisdiction of the
but there
state
is a
of
crime.
Texas,
It's called breach of
but it
computer
is a crime.
security.
Yeah, but it is
Uh,
a crime, and so yeah, and that's where it. I mean, it all has it's subdivided into different little boxes. That kind of deal.
Hey, so I wanted to bring up something that Adela had commented on before, and she mentioned, when it comes to cyberbullying and bullying, we really need to educate our parents and our students, and we need to take those preventive measures. I remember back in the day when I started as a paraprofessional 20 some years ago, bullying, we had no bullying zone, no bullying programs, and so forth. And in the most recent years, I have not really seen that take place in schools. Maybe in the elementaries it does, but
Hmm.
at the upper levels, I don't see it as much. And this is when we need it now the most, because now social media is so readily available. Students can't live without their phones. They're walking in the halls. They look like zombies. They don't even hear you if you try to address them. They're so zoned in on their phones, and they're so susceptible to the cyberbullying, and they need to know what it is, and they need to know that they can report it. And every school district is required to have a way to report bullying anonymously. They
oh,
have to have that, and a lot of people don't know that. Parents don't know that,
Wow.
but
It's part of
there has
David's
to be a
law.
way. Hmm.
What were you saying?
and
That's
and what we're
what
suffering
law is
from
that? David's law.
was David's law. It was passed.
Oh,
It was passed in a recent legislative session that calls for an overhaul in school policies and how responding to situations
right.
of bullying. Uh, but we got to remember that we're coming off the tail end of a pandemic. We
Yeah,
locked
yeah. I
away
was going to say
children in
that.
their homes
We did.
for 2
Yeah,
years.
their best friend
So they've
was
only
the
communicated.
iPad and the cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we put them back in a small place together, and they haven't really talked to people. So from what we understand and from what we've seen in the office, these kids are pretty mean, and they've lost their filter, and that makes things a little bit more difficult when you're going through adolescence. Because I mean, being a teenager is horrible as it is,
Yeah.
and now they're adjusting back to socialization, and that's created some hiccups, and that's concerning to us because if kids are mean to one another, they can get and we can hurt some kids' feelings, and it can get taken to an extreme where someone wants to hurt themselves or hurt someone else, and that's what we don't want.
Right.
So
Right.
David, I believe he took his own life. This was in 2016 after he was continuously being harassed, humiliated, and threatened by a group of students, which we now know we could call a gang,
Right.
through text messages and social media. And that's where David's Law came from.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Man, so much information that, man, this is why we do these shows, because I guarantee you that, probably I would dare to say maybe 80% to 90% of the parents have no knowledge of this. don't know what's going on.
Right.
I mean, they're trying to keep their kids safe, but they really don't know what the. I mean, outside of what I don't know, they probably don't know what's going on as far as what possible attacks could come through their kids through using the devices that they use. I mean, they might say, okay, well, don't talk to strangers, that kind of deal, but it's more than that. I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's important, having that conversation with your kids. And as an example, we'll talk. So science tells us, the statistics tell us that 33% of kids who maybe had who shared an inappropriate image of themselves that got spread out to a group say that they wouldn't talk to anybody. They wouldn't know what to do. That's 1 in 3 kids wouldn't know what to do. So
Wow.
we address that by talking with our kids. There was a case in which where a teenage girl was threatened by her boyfriend. He said, send me nude photographs of yourself, and she said no. And his response was, well, if you don't send me those photographs, I'm going to share with our friend group the photographs that you sent me in the past. And that's a form of
That is a
exploitation,
common threat. Yes.
Yeah.
and it's a crime. The threat itself is a crime. It's a form of
Wow.
revenge porn by exploitation. Thankfully, that young lady had a secure relationship with her mom to go say, "Mom, this is what happened," and we're able to talk to the police. They're able to do the
Okay.
investigation and hold the young man responsible. But it comes on us having that conversation with the kids, and us having them having the security or having the comfort in knowing when something isn't right, when something makes them feel uncomfortable, that they come to the adults and
and
let them know,
and
I
not
need help. Now, even if
right,
they may
and
not,
not yeah, and don't be afraid, and not be afraid
Mhm.
to say no. And if they say, well, I'm going to show these pictures and so forth, have don't be afraid, tell your parents, and stand up to them. And it is a crime, and I would not call it revenge porn. I would call it cyber rape,
Wow.
attempted
well,
rape. Because if somebody's trying to do that to you, put your uh, private parts in public, it's a rape. It's a sexual
well,
assault.
Yeah.
and
Wow.
so the other crime is called sexual coercion, and it's a form of crime in which where someone's trying to coerce you to engage into some type of either physical sexual act or sharing inappropriate photographs, and we see that with the predators who get to know their victims online. And I talked about the Orange County case earlier. That's a form of sexual coercion, and we're seeing that. And so people are meeting folks online. They're cultivating the relationships with these youngsters, normalizing the behavior, and then once they're not acquiescing to the requests, they begin to try to coerce them into doing something, and that coercion is a felony. It's going to be a stage of felony. Now, if they go through with the acts and they complete the threats, that's a separate crime, whether it be aggravated sexual assault or
It could
aggravated
even be
kidnapping or
child
whatever they threat.
pornography. If you're dealing with a
Yes,
child and you're making that child, a minor, commit sexual acts, that's child pornography. And just recently, there was a 21-year-old kid that committed child pornography. He created it, and he was sentenced,
Mm.
I believe, in federal court to how much? It came out in the
I think
paper.
I think he got
190
13
months
years.
or something.
190 months.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, whoever's thinking out there that it's funny to tell a minor, anybody that is not 18 years old, to take their clothes off, well, they better think twice about it, because that is, not only they're creating child pornography, and that is a very serious crime to commit.
Wow.
And it
And
also
another thing. Well, hold on.
it also
Another thing is also like high schoolers that, let's say they're seniors and they're dating freshmen or sophomores, and then they turn 18, and they're going out, but they go to a dance or something or whatever, or, they're parked somewhere and they're making out. At that point, that 18-year-old is now committing, or what's he could be charged for statutory rape or things like that. Am I
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
even though he's a little kid, he's a high schooler. He's 18. At 18, you're no longer a kid. You're already adult. And I used to tell the kids that I would coach in chess that were seniors, hey, stop dating freshmen. Stop
Yes.
dating
Yes.
you sophomores. Stop dating juniors. You got to date, your own level, or, be careful, because at some point, things are going to happen. And if you get caught, even if she says it's okay, it's still against the law.
And it's against the law for a reason.
Yeah.
The brain of a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old hasn't matured, and it can be easily manipulated by an 18-year-old, by a 19-year-old. So since that child cannot protect himself or herself, the law protects that child. They cannot give consent, and there is a reason behind it, a scientific reason, that they don't have the maturity
Right.
to defend themselves, to be able to make a decision without being manipulated. And one thing that needs to be stressed out is that even if they lie about their age, that's not a defense. So it's not a defense for a 20-year-old to say, well, she said she was 18. Well, too bad, so sad. She wasn't.
Right.
So that's not a defense, because that's a common thing that
Right.
they
Right.
like to say is like, well, I didn't know, she
Right.
said she was of age, or he said he was an adult. Be careful about that, because not knowing how old they were does not help you. It's mitigating, but it's not exculpatory completely.
Wow.
Now, is it true that there's something with like a 3-year age gap?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that is true. If there is a 3 age difference between them, that is a defense to statutory rape.
Now it's important to note it is an affirmative defense. It's not an exception. It is not a license. So that in practicality, the crime still happens. Now it's
Right.
just a defense to prosecution. That the people are within 3 years age of one another.
Wow.
So
It's crazy. But I mean, I think you see that with a lot with 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds. Right? Am I right? Or well, I don't know.
what
I'm
you
sure
see,
you see it with older. I mean,
Y- Um,
older
I
age,
well,
but
I
well,
have seen it, and it's through the media. Like I said, there is a crime called solicitation of a minor. So if there's people out there using the internet
well,
to
yes.
meet other people and they meet minors, be careful about that. And we've had cases where 19-year-olds are meeting 12-year-olds. The 12-year-old
Well,
is too young,
right.
is way too young. And even if the 12-year-old is the one that supposedly went to the house of the 19-year-old, too bad, so sad. That is, she's still 12.
Yeah, estaba
And
chiquita, estaba bebita.
no
and
tiene edad
Adela hit it
para
on the head.
saber.
You know
Y-
what? You know
And,
what, Adela? Can you give us a little bit of Spanish here for the parents concerning, I mean, one concern is what's going on video, right? Well, I mean, what's going on the internet, but I think another concern is what's going on in relationships where physical relationships, like nowadays. I mean, some of these kids have not seen themselves. I mean, they have not spoken with each other or been together with each other for like 2 years, and then all of a sudden, I'm sure the hormones are up a whole lot more than normal because andan bien calientes. You got
Oh, too.
the boys and the girls. They haven't seen each other, and now they're able to hook up, and can you give some words to the parents concerning maybe the young little freshmen, sophomores, and maybe some words for the senior boys or even the senior girls, because it could go the other way around, right? An 18-year-old girl with a 16-year-old boy or 17-year-old boy, and they're making out. She could be también at the same charge for the same thing, right?
You hear me? Yeah,
Yes,
sí. ¿Y puedo hablar en español o quieres que hable
claro
en
que
inglés?
sí, claro que sí.
Lo que quiero yo decirle a todos los padres es de que cuiden a sus hijos y cuiden a sus hijas, porque sus, he tenido muchos casos yo donde niñas chiquitas empiezan a tener relaciones primero con la computadora, con gente mayor de edad y luego se salen por la ventana y se van con la persona y eso es cuando empiezan los problemas. Pero también cuiden a sus hijos en el sentido de que edúquenlos, de que no hagan cosas malas porque es un crimen y tampoco y es horrible también ver a tu hijo en la cárcel. Por ejemplo, ese muchacho de 21 años, yo no estoy diciendo que fue culpa de sus padres, claro que no, pero a la misma vez hay que prevenir que sucedan estas cosas. Hay
Claro.
que hablar con nuestros hijos y hay que decirles, hijo, nunca vayas a hacer esto. No te como dices tú, Ray, tú les dices a tus estudiantes que juegan chess que no tengan relaciones con las muchachas que están, que son más chicas que ellos. Lo mismo deben de hacer los padres, lo mismo, para prevenir que sucedan tragedias de estas.
No, y sí es verdad, porque pues, andas con eres un muchacho de 18 años y andas con una niña de 16 años, a mí te enamoras y pues van a pasar cosas y la ley es la ley, no va a decir, pues ella dijo que estaba bien, o ella quiere, o yo quiero, o los dos queremos, pero pues la ley es la ley, ese niño va a ir a la cárcel. Y,
En,
y no hizo
eh,
nada malo en contra de ella, pero la ley la protege. Am I
la
right?
ley, la ley la protege. Bueno, en una situación donde él tiene 18 y ella tiene 16, acuérdate que la ley dice que si son 3 años de diferencia, está esa defensa. Pero como quiera que sea, por ejemplo, en mi casa, mi esposo se lo dijo a mis 3 hijos hombres continuamente, al
Ujú.
grado que los tenía los 3 aterrorizados de que no tuvieran novias más jóvenes. Los 3 siempre tuvieron novias más de mayor edad que ellos,
De
de
tanto
tanto que se los dijimos hasta al cansancio, porque es muy, muy duro ver a un hijo en este tipo de problemas. Y luego aparte, después de que los hayan culpables, tienen que registrar, aunque les hayan dado probation, tienen que registrarse como
sex offenders.
criminales de sex offenders por el resto de su vida. ¿Te
Wow.
imaginas? Las consecuencias son tremendas, son tremendas. Y eso de andarles diciendo a las novias o a las niñas que les enseñen sus partes privadas es muy peligroso porque, como digo, les pueden poner cargos de pornografía de menores y de andar criándola, de andar haciendo la pornografía, que es todavía castigado más seriamente, más duramente.
Wow. And isn't there also distribution of child pornography tied with that as well?
Oh,
Yes.
yes. It just goes
I
on and
mean, it starts like an innocent picture that you sent to somebody, but it carries that weight
it
as if it's like a company that's doing that. It's the same
correct.
weight.
So not only did you create it, not but you also you possessed it and you distributed it. Or it just escalates and escalates to the point of where you could be sentenced to 30 years for stuff like that.
Wow.
So have a
Yeah, yeah.
that needs to be told to people that think it's okay to be asking for pictures of minors. It's a big no-no.
Y
Yeah,
que
Adela,
las niñas chiquitas de 13 años, de 12, 13 años, para ellas es un sueño poder tener un novio como de 17, 18 años, se enamoren y pues hay que tener mucho cuidado, ¿verdad? Y como dice usted, Adela, ¿verdad? Los muchachos tienen que tener mucho cuidado porque las niñas no van a decir, no, yo tengo 12 años, van a, con el
No,
maquillaje
no.
y cómo se visten hoy, se ven mucho mayores de lo que son, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Entonces
Sí,
hay que tener mucho cuidado.
sí, tienen que tener mucho cuidado porque sí se ven mayores. Y no sé qué está pasando, que ahora las niñas como que ya algo hay en la comida o en la nutrición que como
¿Verdad?
que están creciendo más rápido,
They're
pero no del
developing a
cerebro,
whole lot,
más del
a whole
cuerpo.
lot more mature. Yeah,
They
Ujú.
do look more mature
yeah.
earlier, but not from the brain. The
No,
brain is
no,
Right.
Sí, sí, es
no.
verdad. Qué lástima, right? Pero no, sí es verdad. Pues una es la ropa, la fashion, ¿verdad? La ropa se
Yeah.
les mira más sexy, los cuerpos se les mira más desarrollados a estas niñas y pues, wow, ya, es verdad. Y eso es algo que es muy importante. Si tú eres un niño en el high school, I don't know, uh, get a get an official birth of date of that person porque, man, no, puede pasar, ha pasado, y por un error vas a perder tu vida.
por un error, pero no hay que estar presionando a nadie a que se quite la ropa.
Claro,
Eso es algo injusto. Eso es algo injusto. Si tú no le harías eso, si tú no quisieras eso para tu hermana, que alguien le esté diciendo, oye, quítate la ropa y mándame un retrato de tus pechos, oye, si no te gustaría que le hicieran eso a tu hermana, a tu mamá, no se lo hagas a alguien más.
claro, bravo,
And
sí,
what I always tell the girls is, if you can't respect yourself by saying no, nobody else is going to respect you.
right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Pero one thing that I do want to say to all the little girls that may have already done it, not to think that it's the end of the world, and not to think that because they've already did it once, that now they have to say yes to all the boys that ask them. Absolutely not. It's not you one boy took advantage of you and you did it, whatever it is that you did, just forgive yourself and don't ever do it again. Period.
and
I
move
and I
forward. Yeah,
move forward, but that doesn't mean you have to sleep with everybody because, oh well, I'm not a virgin anymore, so now I have to because it's expected of me, or I already did it, so what? No, 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 no. Just because you messed up once, that doesn't mean you have to mess up forever and ever and ever.
It
yeah,
doesn't define you, that one act.
That's right. It doesn't define, perfectly said. It doesn't define you. You can look at them in the face and say no more. It's fine.
right. Hilda, any comments from a
Well, I'm
grandma?
just sitting back and listening, and I learned a lot and heard a lot, and thank y'all because it makes me realize more. That I got to take care of more of my granddaughters because that's all I got. You know, and it's okay to say no and do say no because you make a mistake once, the second time's a choice. So,
Very
you know,
good point.
but yeah, I learned a lot, so I just sat back and wrote in the
Just
right.
took it all in.
Yeah, I just took it on, and
Wow.
it's true. It's hard, really hard. And a lot of girls are scared. Because you take that one picture, and then that one picture is a threat. And if you don't take
Yes.
another one, we're going to get your mother, your father. And they're scared. So thank you.
Yeah, they need not to be scared and know that there are people out there that can help them and will help them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's
The ones
important to
that
note,
should be scared, the ones that should be scared are the ones that are asking them to do that. They
Right.
should be scared.
Yes.
Yeah.
Edward, you wanted to say
yes,
something?
and Adela's right, and we're fortunate enough that the good guys do have the resources to untangle when bad guys do this stuff.
Good.
So no matter where the person is in the United States, the law enforcement has the resources to trace people's IP addresses, to trace their accounts, and for us to unravel the web in order to find the person that's committing these acts. Uh, 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 and 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 in building on what they just said about moving forward, I'll never
Right.
forget. I mean, the Family Crisis Center in Harlingen, Friendship of Women in Brownsville, Mujeres Unidas in Hidalgo County. Not only are they shelters for victims of domestic violence, but they also help victims or survivors of sexual assault. If something has happened, maybe it's just something that's been traumatic in any ways. They provide services to help you and for you to find closure for things that have occurred. In addition to those nonprofits, UTRGV has free counseling services. There's people
Yes.
that care about you. You matter, and society, our community, and our partners want to see you be successful and for you to be healthy. So it's okay if you need to speak out to make the outcry, and you're an adult. There's support services there. If you're a child, there's the child advocacy centers of Willis in Cameron County, Maggie's in Monica's house, in Hidalgo County, Estrella's house. Not only do they do the forensic interviews, but they have the therapy services, the counseling services, in order to help children that are recovering from these instances of abuse and neglect. So it's not all doom and gloom. There are services that are available for us to help folks that are in need.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, great, man. This has been a really great show. Lots of
Yes.
information, lots of
Yes.
insight. It has really made us think,
Yeah.
and really put things in perspective, and really see how we can protect our children
Yeah.
even more. I mean, we want to protect our kids. No one wants their kids to be to fall into any type of harm, but these are harms that we don't see. It's not like, you're walking down the street and there's some bad guy or some bad people with a knife, or they're gonna beat you up or something. You get that kid and you run. These are like coming in like from blind spots, and they're attacking our kids every day. And so this is something that this our kids are living with right now, and so they definitely need our support. They need to feel like they can talk about anything with us, no matter, even if they have done some sort of wrong. That you need to be able to create where a kid can come and talk to the parent. And I mean, that's more from the parent point of view, because the kids also, they have outlets with their teachers or counselors, and then of course,
Yes.
but at that point they're guided into other areas, or other avenues. But I think from parents, I mean, very important. Look at what Adela was saying. We need to talk to our kids about this, because and don't think that a kid can and that your kid will not do something like that, because a lot of these kids are doing it without thinking. They think it's funny. They think it's
Yeah.
it's just a joke. And
Or they're
you
not
know
educated, they don't know the consequences of what
yes,
could happen.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, guys, Adela, any last words before we cut? We're already on the hour mark, and we want to make sure that people come back and see the show and not go too long. This is definitely something we want to bring back, or other topics like this. This is probably the second or third show that we do with Adela and Edward. And man, they every time they come, they bring us very interesting information that helps our community as a whole, and our children base, and parents and everything. So Adela, any last words?
No, I just want to thank you, Ray. You do great shows. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, you're awesome. And Edward, anything?
Thank you again. We appreciate the opportunity to share the message. What's important is that I mean, and I'll focus. We started off talking about the bad guys. For our victims of crime, you're not alone. People care for you, and you matter. And we need to reinforce that with our children. They matter. And thanks for the folks who have tuned in. The more that we care as a community, the more
Yeah.
lasting impact that we can have.
Well, cool. Vandal, any last words?
I just want, any students that are out there that don't feel comfortable talking to their parents and something has happened to them, I really encourage them to reach out to somebody, whether it be a counselor, an administrator, a teacher, somebody that they trust. Talk to somebody so that you can get the help that you need to get.
Wow, thanks. Hilda, parting words,
Yeah,
words of
exactly. Like Angela said, some kids go straight to somebody on the internet, and they don't need to do that. Like Angela said, go to a counselor, because sometimes they're drawn in by a stranger on the internet, and they feel that they can talk to them and say, "Hey, I'm here for you," which they're not.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
And they,
Wow.
you know, yeah, it's scary.
It is scary,
But
man.
yeah,
I feel sorry for the
yeah,
generation of this times where social media is
mhm,
so alive, with so many
yeah,
avenues and so many dangers. I mean, there's good, but man, there's a lot of hidden
yeah,
candy out there that's not to be tasted,
Yeah.
and that's how they get us, so guys, again, thank you for coming in. You guys are awesome. I love every
mhm,
time you come in. I know we need to do some more shows and educate the community and the whole bit, and and I like that I bring Vangela in because she gives us the school's perspective.
Yes.
Both Adela and Edward, you guys bring in the law,
mhm,
and Hilda and I, we just, well, Hilda is bringing in, her experience as being a mom and a grandma, and I just, in general, as but we put our everything together. We're like a wheel, the elder spokes are coming in towards the center, and we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna help people see how they can prevent these situations from happening in their families, whether they're going to be the victim or the possible perpetrator that could be stopped with at because somebody told them, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. And even the last time we were talking about the, what is it, the smoking, that those
The
funny
vapes.
cigarettes,
Uh
the
huh.
vapes, yeah, again. So anyway, guys, this is Royal with Toxel Central RT.
hi.
I'm gonna let everybody go. Thank you, Hilda, Vangela. Thank you, Adela. Besitos, and
Muchas gracias.
Eduardo. Thank
Hasta
you.
luego.
Hasta luego.
Hi.
Here we go. This is Royal with Toxel Central RTV style, guys. We had an awesome show tonight. We will see you Sunday. We're gonna have a music show on Sunday, guys. So we see you, and adios.